and what's happening and economic changes and everything, this is the place to be. In the UK and the European markets, I tell you what they're really good at, and one thing, if you are an entrepreneur involved in the Internet of Things or research and development, look seriously at having a hub in the UK. The amount of creativity that is going on in the UK is incredible. Tech Hub, in particular in East London, is doing phenomenal things, and they've opened a tech hub in Bangalore at the UK India Business Council. So tech, research and development, all of that, to do collaborations with the UK, I think is an amazing thing to do. In terms of selling your products, yes, look at the UK, but don't forget the market here. The market here is massive.
One last question from my side before we open it up to the audience. If you have to give one advice to the startups, one advice which they must follow, what would be your recommendation?
One. There isn't one. Keep the main thing, and keep KPIs around it, keep timelines around it, and aggressively make it happen, because you can. That's what I'd say.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I will open it up to the audience if the audience has any questions for Vandana.
So what's your take on the future of the publishing business?
Yeah, interesting question. I think for at least the next 20 to 30 years, books are still going to be around. I think there's enough people who still want paper. Thereafter, I think everything's going to be encoded in chips, and I think they're going to be in us.
What about e-readers? Is that something which will shake up the book industry? It's been around
It
for
is.
some time.
It is shaking up the book industry, and especially the new ones that you're getting, which are in colour and much more look and feel of the book. I think it is. I mean, any traveller is going to be on that. But again, you've got to look at the size of the market. You look at India. 80% of the population are not going to use e-readers. 80% of the population have still got their mobile phones. They're not going to read on their mobile phones. They're not that savvy. It's not that easy. So I think that's why I think books are still going to be around for a while.
No, I'm talking about Kindles. I'm not talking
Kindles.
about... yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do think they're going to be, they are going to grow in increasing importance in the area of, sort of mobile, technologically savvy people. But I think for the vast majority of India, for example, I don't think it's going to be such a game changer. I don't think. But obviously in the West, yes, absolutely. I mean, a lot of our students in the West are doing everything on their apps now, on their phones now.
Being in the content business, what is your approach on piracy?
Piracy is really... I have to tell you a really quick story on piracy. I went to Bangladesh, and I went to a market called Nilkhet Market, and my Bangladeshi franchisee took me there. And he said, I don't want you to be horrified with what you see. So we go in there, and you know what, even your books are probably in there, but there was this whole section of Get Through Guides textbooks. And so I went up to the guy and I said, through my franchisee, I said, can you just ask him, do you have F7 financial reporting? And he looked up there and he said, no. He said, we don't have it. He said, but I tell you what, if you give me 4 days, I'll get it for you. And I said, oh, how are you? And he said, madam, they're actually based in India, in Pune. So I'll send my guy on the train. He'll get it. You come back. How many copies do you want? I said, maybe 40 copies. He goes, yeah, I can do that for you. And I said, can you? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, I'll give you my card. Will you arrange for them? And so I give him my card. And he just looks at me. And he goes, madam, what to do? What to do? Like this. And I was just like, what? I mean, seriously, it's really hard. It's really hard. Nobody has any regard for content and IP. And I think you just have to accept that that is the way it is. I don't agree with it. I think people who are honourable will still buy. I mean, we're seeing this with the music industry. that they are buying, certainly in the UK there's Spotify and things like that, and India's got its equivalent. But unfortunately, if people can save money, they will. And it is going to push, it's going to mean that really good quality content is not going to be available. And that is something that really does scare me. So it's one area where, if my books make millions, I'm just going to set up a foundation to do it, to create really brilliant content that is free of charge. I don't know how you can fight piracy of books, and it's a nightmare.
And just to give you an insight, books are available in Pune also.
Books are?
Your pirated books, you can get them in Pune.
Yeah, I know. I mean, what to do? What to do?
Buy them out.
Okay, one thing we have done though, we did have a similar problem with some trainers that trained with us and then went off and started freelancing by themselves using our materials. Now luckily they were members of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, India. So we just wrote to them straight away and we said, we are going to go to the ethics committee of the Institute if you don't stop using our materials. They stopped immediately. So where you've got an avenue, use it. But I had a big argument with a couple of the big boys when I was part of the Liverpool Business Festival last year, and we won't name the companies, but there were two big ones that said, oh, IP in India is fine, it's very secure, you don't need to worry about it. And I was just like, seriously, I completely disagree with you. And they were like, no, you just get the right lawyers. And you know what, if you're $1 million company or $1 billion company, you can do that. But if you're Miss Startup or Mrs. Startup or, entrepreneur number 2 or 3, it's very, very difficult to fight it. So sorry, I can't really say any more on it.
What is the situation of company today? Till you find out there are some problems, or it's going very smoothly?
The company's going really well now, touch wood. Yeah, in fact there's going to be some news in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And that's something that's happening, so I'm quite excited. I've made the decision to do something that I really needed to do, because I think there comes a point where creating a brand is very, very hard, and especially in the education space, it's very hard. And when you have such big competitors globally as Kaplan and BPP and Schweizer and all of these ones, DeVry, it's very hard to be a small player. And there comes a point where you really have to make a decision about, why am I doing this? And if my intention is to impact the masses and really grow, then you have to take certain decisions. And that's one of the decisions we're taking in the next few weeks.
Your get-through guides are only for finance and accounting disciplines, or you're into other fields as well?
We're into other disciplines, but it's mainly around the BFSI space. That's the main area, but we do, not on the publishing side, but on the training side, we do a lot of transforming mindsets. How do you get people to realise that they're actually capable of doing a lot more? And we do a lot of female leadership programs, a lot of business leadership programs for a lot of the large corporates.
If you had to redo this again,
Yeah,
would you focus on just training or just publishing, or would you want to do both?
that's a really great question. If I was to do this again, would I focus on just training or just publishing? What I would do is I would focus on publishing, but much more tightly. I would have publishing and training, but I would have been much tighter in terms of the products that I was delivering and the marketing. I would have been much more involved with the marketing and sales on the publishing side.
What do you mean by tighter?
Tighter as in I
narrower
would have
range?
watched, I would have been watching, and I would have got involved more in the decisions that were made in terms of publishing, in terms of the sales and marketing of publishing. But I do think they go hand in hand. I think we're really strong. I think we're really strong because we have publishing and we have trade.
Fantastic talk. That's the story, Vandana. It was really a pleasure to be here and listen to your story.
Thank you.
So, one,
Can I get one last shot?
yeah,
Just one question at the
yeah.
front.
The one quote that I really liked what you said was, there is no such thing as rapid growth. I think I couldn't agree more on that.
Yeah.
So one question for you is, you talked about masses, you talked about making a difference. Now in India, the masses and where the difference could really be made
Yeah.
is in the non-English speaking
Yes.
population.
Yes.
So looks like most of your work
Yeah.
is in the English language.
Yes.
Any thoughts on how could
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this is part of the reason why we're going to do what we're going to do within the next 3 to 4 weeks. Because I completely agree with you. My vision was always, I have got to make sure that this brand is understood and known by the top corporates and business people first, because that's going to give it the credibility when we go to the masses. And we can't go to the masses until we've got that credibility. So if I now go to one of the large companies and say, with your 2%, this is what we want to do, I know that they're going to go and they're going to say, yes, that's something that we could potentially engage in. So yes, that is definitely part of this next step.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Training being a very highly skilled profession, how do you scale it up? How do you ensure that you're delivering good quality clients?
So that's a great question, and that is the biggest challenge, and that's been one of the biggest challenges in India. I've never had that problem in Eastern Europe at all. There's 3 things that I think need to happen. The first is you have to have really committed trainers. And how do you get committed trainers? You build relationships with them. So even when they're not in the classroom, we do conference calls where we get all the trainers, together on a call to talk about what's going on, what's happening in their lives, what bits they enjoyed doing, what bits they found difficult. During the season when they're training with us, because a lot of ours is exam-based training, we're having calls regularly with them, finding out where the problems are happening, getting other trainers to give them ideas. So they're bonded to GTG. That's something very special. And a lot of them won't work with anyone else. So that's one thing. The second is we're meticulous on training the trainers. We have, I would say, such a fantastic train the trainers program that goes through instructional design, that goes through how to deal with difficult students, how to get the classes interactive. Today, in today's world, you cannot have teachers, professors, you have to have interactors. And I came out with this equation on transformation being caused by quality interactions. So we train all of them on quality interactions. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is we keep them up to date on what we're doing. So we bond with them, and they come back to us year after year. And we don't pay the best in the industry by any means, but they really like working with us because we do those things and we have that family feel. And you keep that family feel as you go, as you scale.
Yeah. You said at the time had come when you had to tell some of your staff to leave, I guess.
Yeah.
So how was that period after the how
I cried every day. I'm not going to deny it. I cried every day. In the build-up to that period, I went through, we were up all night. My kids were, I think, 5 and 4 at the time, and I would literally have them sleeping on my lap, and I'd be in tears at the computer just thinking, how am I going to do this? And as far as possible, we help them find jobs in other places. We, even today, when I think about that time, I've still got sellotape over those wounds. It was a very, very difficult period, and I never want to do that again. But invariably, one thing you have to know is that an entrepreneur, you will have to do it again and again and again. You have to prune your organisation at various points, and I think it's like. This is probably not quite the right analogy, but it's like if you have an illness and you have to cut something off, you have to cut something off. Otherwise the rest is going to fester. And that's what we had to do. It's not, the people weren't the problem was the organisation. We weren't in the right space. Some of the people weren't the right people, and those people had the warning because the reviews hadn't been going that well. But where my heart really wrenched was when I had to get rid of really good people that I really cared about, but they've all gone on to do brilliant things.
Firstly, I thank our guest Vandana. It was truly inspiring, your story, whatever you shared with us. It's an honor, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for coming. I thank Radha for facilitating the session. I would like to thank Arpita as well for introducing TiE Pune and welcoming our audience. I would like to thank audience for participating in today's event and make it a success. I would like to thank all our charter members, all the volunteers and TiE Pune team for making this event possible today.